Welcome back to the Books Brothers podcast, a group of friends from college who have stayed in touch through this book club. We read books together, reflect on them as they relate to our lives, and connect with each other by sharing our experiences. I'm Adam.
I'm Thomas.
I'm Matt.
I'm Garrett.
And I am Flez.
We are currently reading The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This has been a great read thus far. In today's episode, we will dive into chapters 12 through 14. So we start with chapter 12, Surprise. Housel talks about the unpredictable nature of financial markets and life events in this chapter. He highlights the inevitability of surprises in both personal finances and broader economic landscapes, emphasizing their potential to disrupt even the most well-laid financial plans. He references specific historical events such as the Great Depression, World War II, the 9/11 terrorist attack, and many others. He notes how these events were unpredictable and drastically affected the economy. Through these examples, he underscores the importance of preparedness, adaptability, and resilience in managing unexpected financial changes. He notes that it is by planning for surprises that individuals can better withstand the impact of unforeseen events and position themselves for long-term financial success. Have any of you guys ever experienced a large financial surprise? And if so, how did you deal with it?
I would say taxes. When I'm doing my tax return, and then it's like, oh shoot, I got a good return, and then like, oh crap, I owe a ton. So how I deal with that is, it's however you want to like put it in a budget. We just call it like, I think tax escrow is what we're calling it. That's going to be used to pay for taxes.
I can think of a couple instances where I've been surprised by a financial bill. Right after we had Lucy, she was a couple months old, I think. Our heater went out in February or March or something. I can't really remember. But we had to replace our heater right after having a kid. So it would have been a little bit more okay if we didn't have a newborn in the house. We probably could have toughed it out a little bit. But with a newborn, we kind of need heat. And we were not expecting to have to buy a whole new heater for our house.
How much is a new heater? How much is a new heater to like give us a range?
I honestly don't remember. A couple thousand, few thousand.
You blocked it out?
Yeah, just blocked it all out. Even this last week, our garage door stopped working. And that was unexpected. It wasn't a huge expense, but it was an unexpected expense. And it's just kind of annoying and frustrating that it happened. So we had to get that replaced. We had it replaced yesterday, actually. The motor that pulls up the garage door. Which now that I'm saying that sounds like a very privileged thing to have and to be able to do. Like, there's a lot of people that don't have a garage door, let alone a garage door that opens automatically.
I don't have a garage door, man. Like, you need to...
Yeah.
Yeah, count your blessings, bro. Come on, man.
For real.
I would live in your garage. If you let me.
For real though. It's a large garage.
I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I feel like every time that we have a car problem, that's always one that feels very stressful. It's usually big numbers, and it's usually going to very much inconvenience you for the next couple of days. And that's one too where you definitely can have you have a car, obviously, so you're in that place. But I think the obvious answer to that is just like having, like as Garrett talked about, kind of having like your rainy day fund of sorts, your emergency fund. But sometimes some of these bigger expenses, it's tough because it feels like you're forced into a decision. Can't really like shop around. Like heater going out, prime example, Matt, or a car expense where you need to get driving again. Like similarly, Matt, like our air conditioner broke while we were at the hospital before Ruth gave birth to Daphne, and it was early July, and so it was like 107, 108, and yeah, we had to pay for that.
What about medical bills? Did anybody say that? Anybody brought up medical bills? Yeah,
kind of brought that up.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the last chapters, but that's a major one.
Yeah, it's like one of the major reasons for people going bankrupt, right?
It is number one.
Yeah, it is number one.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Imagine like a trip to the emergency room and then you get that bill in the mail. It's like, holy cow.
You guys, I know Matt's been to the emergency room. I remember that in college.
Yeah, I was, but I was on my parents' insurance at the time.
Nice. See, that's
I didn't have to pay for it.
That's how you do it. Don't worry about any of this stuff. Just stay on your parents' insurance as long
That's the answer. That's all the wisdom that
you're
we have
always
to offer.
25. You're perpetually 25.
Matt, do you feel like because you shared, a couple examples there, do you feel like having gone through a couple things like that, have you done things differently to prepare for those situations, or any
No,
mindset?
not really, because since I started actually making money after college, I've always been big on paying off debt and saving for an emergency. And I'm blessed because I was taught that. I had a lot of good older people in my life to tell me these are some things that you should be doing at this point in time. Right out of college, you should, probably save up to at least 3 months of your salary. So I've always tried to do that. And so when these big expenses hit, we had the cash, we had the savings to pay for it. It just dips into that savings account where we're trying to save up to buy something else, something bigger. So it'll be a little bit longer to pay for those things, but it never broke us. We never had to go into debt because of those things or go into financing options, which we're really thankful for. So no, I haven't really had to change anything. It's just trying to make sure that we have enough saved up for those emergencies to where it's not going to break us, and continue to make financial decisions that allow us to have those savings.
I've saved money and been like, man, why am I saving this? Like you have that 3 months or whatever everybody tells you, but then you keep saving money and you're just like, should I be saving this if I don't really have a good purpose in mind for it? I remember before we got married, before I even knew I was going to propose to my wife, it was kind of like that. And then after I proposed and we got married, I was like, man, I'm sure glad I saved what I did, because weddings are expensive and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys have felt like that. Saving for the sake of saving, like, what's the point?
I honestly don't think I'd do that. I'd save for, I got to get, like, we're going to buy a house. So we need to save for a down payment. Or
I think that's what we do too.
We need to get a car. So we need to save. And there's always that 3 months or whatever that the goal is for. But I haven't gotten to a point. I feel like we invest fairly well, but we probably save less than the average person just for like straight cash in the bank account. And again, that's all relative. It's very privileged because if one of us lost our job, we would be fine for 3 to 6 months. I just mean that concept of saving just to save. That is harder for me. I'm like, no, money can't just sit there.
Yeah, I can agree, Garrett. And I feel like, and I think this is what I do to justify it, is that, like I say, like, oh, we're saving for these 5-6 different things. Most of the time, those aren't all needs. And so if something comes up where we do have to shift and say, like, well, I was saving for this, but now we're going to use it for this. Like, we've definitely had a lot of times where we've had to, like, shift gears like that. I don't know if you can relate to that in your situation.
Let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsors.
Husbands, are you tired of keeping a budget only for your wife to blow right past it at the end of the month? Are you wanting that extra protection to make sure you're hitting financial goals? Now introducing the wife spending button. This feature is available with all banking and credit card companies and allows you, the husband, to directly prevent your wife from spending money at select retailers. Say your wife loves going to Lululemon or Vera Bradley for those month-end sales. Just enable this feature with your bank and credit card company, and boom, your wife will be denied at the point of sale. It's that easy. Wife spending button. It'll only work so long until you cave.
That's a good one, man. And now back to the show.
Obviously, talking about like saving for the sake of saving, and really that's what Housel gets into in chapter 13, titled "Room for Error." So he stresses the importance of leaving room for margin when financial planning. He notes you have to give yourself room for error. You have to plan on your plan not going according to plan. In this chapter, he discusses the idea of financial humility, which that was a new concept for me. He talks about being humble enough to realize that you do not and cannot know what can happen next. In an anecdote that we likely can all relate to, he shares that when analyzing other people's home renovation plans, most people estimate the cost and time will be 20 to 50% over budget, while the homeowner themselves tend to believe that the plan will go on time and according to budget. So to conclude this chapter, as we've really been already hitting on here some, he stresses saving for the sake of saving, because we cannot always predict what the future holds. So what do you guys think about the concept of financial humility? And what are maybe some specific strategies that you guys implement to align that concept in your life?
Stay paranoid.
Stay paranoid, okay.
I have an old coworker that I worked with at a prior job. He was the most paranoid dude. He was like an engineer. Most paranoid dude. He did almost all of our estimating and a lot of our construction management, though. And he was the best at controlling costs, finding ways like value engineering, finding ways to do things that achieved the same outcome, but in a way that was cheaper and more efficient. And the entire reason he was like that, because he worried that every single thing that could conceivably go wrong would go wrong. And it drove everybody kind of crazy at first, because you didn't realize, like, you were just like, man, this guy's so paranoid. He's driving me crazy with all these things. Like, he's so negative about. But then once stuff actually happened, you were like, wow, I'm so glad kind of he's on the team looking out, because inevitably something always happens and it costs more or takes longer. So in your life, I guess, yeah, I mean, you start to think about, when's the last time I hit a unexpected expense, and it kind of makes you nervous because you know something might be right around the corner. I guess paranoia is not always bad if you can manage it and it doesn't drive you crazy or make you worry or stress out. I wouldn't know. I don't know if I would call that a strategy, but
this didn't affect my personal finances, but I think of COVID and how that affected my assessment of risk and project management in my own job. There came a point because I work in consumer products and international manufacturing, supply chain, logistics. The contract manufacturer we worked with for a certain product at the height of COVID was requesting forecasting for, I think, 63 weeks out or 73 weeks out for a product. And if you're not familiar with forecasting and planning for consumer products, that is a very long time. Very long. If we order a tumbler today, it will probably be here, including shipping time, within 6 months. So by the time they manufacture it, put it on a boat, and get it here from China is 6 months total. They're asking for 13 months notice, 14 months notice, just to get enough raw materials to make the parts. I mean, it was insane. And there was an aspect of, man, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong during COVID. From a health standpoint, from all of the things, and then the consumer products landscape. I think that has trickled into a lot of my personal finances, whether it be with taxes or buying a house. Like my first time buying a house, I was like, oh yeah, we can do 10% down payment. And then they're like, here's the closing costs, and here's this, and here's that. I'm like, I think we're going to put down 5% for our down payment. So there's just a lot of things like that where I think COVID has impacted my risk assessment on most things in life.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I kept, like the phrase I kept thinking about in this chapter was to live within your means. And you guys have probably heard me say that as we've been going throughout this book. I think it's just crucial. And I think that making sure that you're not, consistently running yourselves in the red. With where we're at with our current like financial status, like that's, I would say, a big, we're not really at a point where we're doing tons of investing or anything like that. But the big thing for us is just like being, making sure we're taking care of everything, and we're, we have like a Dave Ramsey, like every dollar budget. And that's really been like our biggest strategy to live within our means, or to, to essentially to plan for unexpected, by knowing that each month we're putting a buffer in. We're doing things to basically make sure that we're not going to be in the red. And some of that includes saving, that we plan saving. And so that's been really helpful for us throughout time. We're not the best at it, but it's been something that's been really helpful for us.
You guys know anybody who just seems like they're always juggling? Like there's always something. Yeah. Like the ball dropped here, so they got us borrow money from over there. Yeah. Or their credit card here got, I don't know, maxed out, so they got to try to take something else out and get another line of credit. Or like, I know people like that, and it just seems so.
You do?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't actually, to be honest.
I just know,
like, maybe I know them and they haven't told me, but no, I don't.
No, like to them, it's just kind of how life is. It's like every week or two, something, you got to figure something out. And I think a lot of people are like that. I think we're all kind of like in a bubble of acquaintances or family or whatever, that most people we know aren't like that. But I think that's actually pretty normal in terms of people's experience with money.
In chapter 14, titled You'll Change, the focus is on the inevitability of individual change in personal finance and the importance of adapting one's financial strategies over time. Housel emphasizes that individuals undergo significant life changes, such as career shifts, family dynamics, and personal goals, which impact their financial priorities. When facing the reality that our goals and circumstances will change throughout our lifetime, the author leaves the reader with the following advice. Avoid extreme ends of financial planning, trust the simple concept of compounding investments over time, and accept the reality of change and move on as soon as possible. So for you all, what are some of the ways in which your life circumstances have changed, and how has it affected your relationship with managing money?
I think of two things. One, having children, especially with both parents, both of us work. Daycare was and is very expensive. You go from, expecting your first child, and all right, there's going to be diapers, and eventually there will be food and clothes. And then there's, I joke, but I don't joke. We have the cost that my parents spent on me to go to Missouri State for 4 years. I think we have paid for our kids to go to college at Missouri State 2 to 3 times already.
Oh gosh.
I mean, granted, I got like a scholarship for tuition, but so yeah, just like tuition at least, like 2 or 3 times. It's crazy how expensive
they need a daycare scholarship. Dang.
Yeah. So I think that has affected, like, all right, right now we're about to start pre-K, and it was a big conversation of like, all right, finally, like public school, let's go. Like, don't have to pay anymore. And then we just had a lot of conversations. Very long story short, we're putting Graham in private school. That was another rational versus reasonable conversation where I was like, I really want this money in our bank account. But then there were a lot of these reasons where it's like, okay, there's these good reasons too, and I can give that up. So that's one. And then the other one is just career changes. I mean, I feel like I'm probably beating a dead horse, but starting out of college at a nonprofit job where I had to fundraise my own salary, to 10 years later, our income has grown, and it's kind of scared me at times when I think of the concept of Jesus talking about stewarding and being good stewards of our money. Going back to that previous chapter about being humble, starting with a little has helped us have humility and ask for help. Like, we have a financial advisor, someone who actually was involved at Crew at Missouri State, and he's great. But yeah, it definitely has affected my relationship with money when you have kind of two ends of the experience at the start of college and then 10 years later. And then you throw kids in the mix where they're very expensive, and how you look at it where you want to spend it, where you want to save and invest and give it. There's a lot of life circumstances that have happened over the last 10 years that have really impacted our relationship with managing money.
I was going to add, for me personally with this, and I've already kind of touched on it a little bit in previous episode, but COVID and business shutting down and divorce really humbled me and kind of made me realize, like, companies have different departments for a reason. You know, like some people are just better at managing finances. Some people are better at managing logistics. Some people are better at, you know, X, Y, or Z. I had to realize I am just not good at managing money, but I am good at delegating. And so that's one area of my life where I had to humble myself and just have more help in management of that. I didn't know that until some failures kind of made that apparent. That's definitely changed the way that I personally manage money. And I have specific roadblocks set in place for certain things. Like I only allot spending about $200 a week on food, supplements, stuff like that. So that's like one tangible thing that I do specifically that is different from before. And so it just keeps me mindful for sure of like day-to-day spending specifically. You know, if I'm only allotted $200 a week, even though I could spend more than that based on like income and all that, it prevents like, you know, more impulsive purchases like on Amazon or something like that. You know, for me personally, I have struggled with like getting into the woodworks on research with like supplements, like sports nutrition and all that kind of stuff. That's my background. And so my basically addiction is like getting too into that kind of stuff. And so my purchases can sometimes be like that impulsive, like maybe this supplement will help X, Y, or Z. And so then it's, you know, a lot of my money goes to that. So the thing of like 200 a week is like, well, if I do that, then that's going to cut out money for food or like gas, which is
no more gluten-free chicken nuggets.
That's right. That being said, like I willingly have these roadblocks set up, but it's like the atomic habits thing, really setting up roadblocks to habits that you want to get rid of and making new habits that you want to start as easy as possible to make them as easy as possible. And so that's definitely one thing that's changed a lot with me, just being more risk averse in general, but then more humble and delegating in something that I'm not good at.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of the FIRE movement? Financially Independent Retire Early is what FIRE stands for. And it got really big before COVID. I don't know when it started, but it was basically these folks, a lot of them were young, just out of college, had really high income. They worked for tech companies a lot of times like Google or something. And they were all about extreme frugality and saving so much money that they could retire when they were like 30 or something like that. And that type of extreme made it to where, like, at such a young age, they don't realize that as you go through life, your needs and your mindset about money and what you want or need is going to change. So they like spent a decade of their lives essentially just saving and saving and saving, but not really knowing, you know, how that might play out. And what happened to the FIRE movement is it got criticized pretty harshly. And now it's kind of shifted into like more of a well-rounded type strategy where, yes, people save, but they also realize like retiring early isn't everything. And a lot of people who retire early actually have a lot of trouble transitioning to that because it's a totally different lifestyle with totally different spending habits. And if you spend 10 years doing nothing but being super, super frugal, then once you let yourself spend, you're just going to be paralyzed. You're just going to be like, I don't want to. That spending equals bad. I'm kind of in a part of life right now that we've saved a lot. I haven't splurged on a whole lot of stuff, but we kind of want to get into having kids soon. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, man, if we want to do anything, we better do it quick. And then also when it's only been you and your wife, which is also kind of frugal, like you don't buy a lot of stuff you don't really need. And then once you have kids, I'm sure that there's a lot of expenses where you're just like, I just have to spend this money and be okay with that. So I guess that's something I haven't fully grasped yet, but I'm expecting it's going to be difficult for me just because I don't like spending on stuff that's not directly correlated with some function of my future. You know, like spending on the now isn't something I've been used to, I guess.
I guess I can relate mostly with what Garrett said, and I don't need to rehash that, but a different take on that is I feel like I've had some good mentors, some older mentors in my life when I was in college, fresh out of college. And I kind of hit on it before, but when I first got a credit card, it was actually through our youth group, through the church. So I had my own credit card, but it was mostly for youth group purposes. And I was told to never overdraft, always pay it off. And that stuck with me my entire life, having someone to tell me how to manage a credit card well, which in turn has given me a really good credit score, which I think is a ridiculous thing to have, to be honest. It's so stupid. But I also did a little bit of work for a company called Primerica, and they do investments, life insurance, things like that. I wasn't with them for very long, but it did teach me about investing early and the importance of investing early, even if it's just a little bit of money each month. Basically, since out of college, I started a Roth IRA and have mostly just been putting the minimum amount in there, but just letting that grow, letting it compound, and working towards a decent retirement. Hopefully, that's a goal of mine. So I think just having those mentors in my life providing guidance and advice on what to do financially when I was fresh out of college and had no idea what to do with money, that was really helpful for me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Books Brothers Podcast. Join us next time as we discuss chapters 15 through 18 from the book The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. If you haven't yet, there's still time to get the book so you can follow along with us. If you've enjoyed listening or benefited from our conversations, please subscribe, give us a review, and share with a friend that you want to connect with. Lastly, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can reach us by email at connect@booksbrotherspodcast.com or on Instagram at booksbrotherspodcast. Until next week, read, reflect, and connect.